south. And so they wanted him to have a driver. And the driver was a gentleman by the name of Tony. Tony lived in the Bronx. All his family lived in the Bronx. His job was a bouncer at a private club. And it's a excellent story of the experiences of these two gentlemen as they did an 8-week tour of the South, and how the combined experiences changed both of their attitudes about each other. So if you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. So there will also be a celebration Saturday at the Johnson County Community College. Again, a celebration of Martin Luther King and his activities. And lastly, I would say this. If you haven't visited the Johnson County Museum, or if you have and you missed the exhibits which portray the importance of African Americans in the history of Johnson County, I would urge you to do so. There's some outstanding African Americans from the 1800s through the 30s, 40s, and even up to the Civil Rights Act, who were active in our county and made major contributions to our counties and to each of our communities. So if you haven't visited that exhibit, I would encourage you to do so. And next, we have I'm going to ask those who are here from the Kansas State Extension Office to join me at the podium. Tara Markley is the director of Kansas State Extension, and we have a proclamation representing and promoting Radon Awareness Month in January. And I'm going to ask that these representatives explain what they're promoting and the importance thereof. So I'll present this proclamation to you and turn the microphone over to you.
Thank you.
And you might introduce those over.
I will do so. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner and Chairman, and also thank you to our other commissioners this morning. I appreciate your recognition of this important issue. My name is Denise Dias. I am a Johnson County Extension agent, and I work in the areas of home and family, aging, and finances. My guests with me today are Larry Justice. He is our outgoing Extension Council Board Chair, and of course, my director, Tara Markley. She's the Director of Extension for Johnson County. A little bit about radon, and then we'll talk a little bit about how that affects Johnson County residents. Radon, of course, comes from a natural occurring radioactive decay from uranium and radium that's found in the soil beneath our homes. The amount of radon that's in a home, it varies from one house to the next. So there's no way to predict how much radon a home is going to have. For instance, I always like to say a neighbor's house may be really high and yours may be low. So no way to predict that. During January, it's National Radon Awareness Month. We encourage folks to test their home for radon. January is a great month to do that because with our heating systems on and as the heat rises in our homes, the radon below the soil, below grade, is kind of sucked up like a chimney through our homes. And so that's why we suggest folks should test now. Radon is the second leading cause of lung cancer after cigarette smoking. So that's another reason why it's such an important issue. A few Johnson County facts that you might be interested in. The average level of radon tests in Johnson County is 5.3 picocuries per liter. That's the average. The action level suggested by EPA is anything above 4 picocuries per liter, which is a measurement of air. So for Johnson County residents, a lot of our homes are high. The highest level ever recorded in Johnson County was 309 picocuries per liter. The numbers that I'm giving you are from 2017. That's the latest that I have. The number of homes in Johnson County that have been tested are 241,396. That leaves, as of that time, about 206,000 homes that have not been tested. So this is 2-year-old numbers, and I'm sure we've had lots of construction since then. So some other things to know. I know at your seats you have a map of Johnson County. It's based on the state of Kansas, but you can even go into the Kansas Radon Program website and look at it according to zip code. And even that is not a true, accurate prediction of the radon level in your zip code. So what is Johnson County Extension's response to all this? So some things that I've done after realizing these concerns and issues for Johnson Countyans, I've participated in state activities. There was a state proclamation in December that I was invited to attend. I've written articles for JOCO magazine, for Best Times. I've also written articles for our own e-extension newsletter called Knowledge for Life. We've done numerous Facebook posts and tweets and social media to raise awareness during this time. So how has this affected and impacted our own office? So since January 2nd, we have had residents coming in picking up radon kits. And as of last night, there were 727 residents that have stopped in to pick up a kit to have their home tested for radon. The kit is a DIY kit where they can do it themselves. It's very simple. They just set the kit out, let it sit for a certain amount of time, and then put it in the postage paid envelope and send it back in, and they get the results within less than a week usually. So this is truly an honor to be here this morning. I do hope you've learned a little bit about radon, and thank you again for recognizing this issue.
Well, thank you very much, and we should note that the K-State Extension office is in the Sunset Office Building at 119th and Ridgeview. So if there's anyone out there who would like to stop by and pick up a kit, there is a small charge, is that right?
There is a small fee. They're $8 per kit.
Okay.
And that is the price that we pay for them, so we sell them at our cost to the residents as, you know, a good measure for them.
Very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. Good to see you. Thank you very much. We will have a photo here,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
I don't want it off.
Okay. Kind of hold the proclamation up.
Okay. I just dropped it.
I'll let you do that.
Too many things.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job. Very good team. At this time, we will turn to the public comment portion of our agenda. If there's anyone present who would like to speak to an item which does not later appear on the agenda, we would invite you to the podium, state your name and address, limit your comments to 5 minutes, and we'll be glad to receive that information. Is there anyone to be heard? If not, the public comment portion of our agenda is concluded. I do have several notes for the record this morning. I will be signing Administrative Resolution number WD 19-002, removing property from Contract District number 1 of Blue River 22 and enlarge it into the Consolidated Main Sewer District and altering the outside boundaries of the districts accordingly in the vicinity of 174th Street and Flum in the city of Overland Park. Also, Administrative Resolution number WD 19-003, enlarging the privately financed sewer district and providing for the assessments of all applicable fees, charges, and levies in the Consolidated Main Sewer District in the vicinity of 175th Street and Quivira Road. Also, Administrative Resolution Number WD 19-004, enlarging the privately financed sewer district and providing for the assessments of all applicable fees, charges, and levies of Contract District Number 1 of Blue River Number 24 in the vicinity of 175th Street and Quivira Road. Also, Administrative Resolution Number WD 19-007, enlarging the privately financed sewer district and providing for the assessment of all applicable fees, charges, and levies of the Consolidated Main Sewer District in the vicinity of 9925 West 85th Street, LPS, in the city of Overland Park. And 4 partial and 1 full release of easements for the Consolidated Main Sewer District of Johnson County, Kansas, due to the removal of sanitary sewer lines at 107th Street and Knoll Avenue in the city of Overland Park. And finally, I'll be signing an agreement with the city of Overland Park for the construction of stormwater management project known as Walmer Street, 97th to 99th Street. That concludes notes for the record. Moving to the consent agenda, the clerk will please read the proposed consent agenda items.
Item number 1, IFB number 2018-080. Consider authorizing contracts with Capital Sand Company, Ham Incorporated, Mid-States Materials, LLC, and Johnson County Aggregates in the amount not to exceed $600,000 for the purchase of rock products for a 1-year term with the option to renew 4 additional 1-year terms.
Well, this is the only action consent item, so it'll be considered separately. Are there any questions? Is there anyone present who would like to address the commission on this item? There being none, we be heard. It's back before the commission. Mr. Allen. Mr. Osterhouse.
I know. I was going to call.
Old habits are hard to break.
The shadow looms.
Move for approval of the consent item as presented.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the consent item as presented. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Fast.
Yes.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye. Motion carried. Moving to the action agenda.
Item number 2, application number SW-PP/FP-3438. Consider a request from Phelps Engineering Incorporated, applicant, and Moonlight Ridge Family Farms, LLC, landowner, for preliminary and final plat approval for 2 lots on approximately 130 acres to be known as South Moonlight in Section 12, Township 14, Range 22, Johnson County, located at the southwest corner of 151st Street and Moonlight Road.
Mr. Leipzig.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jay Leipzig, the Planning Department Planning Director. This item before you for the preliminary and final plat at 151st and Moonlight Road. It was presented before the Southwest Consolidated Zoning Board on November 28th, 2018. That body unanimously approved this item, or recommended this item to be brought forward to you. Staff is also recommending approval, and I can give you an aerial there that shows the plat. It's basically, it's 2-lot subdivision. 1 lot, lot 1 is 56 acres, lot 2 is 70 acres. Lot 2 will have access off of Moonlight Road. With that, I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you might have.
Questions of staff? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leipzig, on this parcel, is it within the future planning districts of either Gardner or Olathe?
This, I believe, is not.
Okay.
This is still considered very much a rural area out there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is the applicant present? Any comments you'd like to make? Okay, so noted. Is there anyone present who would like to speak to this item? If not, it's back before the commission. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I move to approve a preliminary and final plat for 2 residential lots to be known as South Moonlight for the reasons and subject to the stipulations recommended by the zoning board.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the application and the plats as noted. Any further questions or discussion? There being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye, motion carried. Item number 3.
Resolution number 002-19, SW-CU-3442, GA. Consider a request from Paul D. Hamilton, applicant landowner, for conditional use permit for a ground mount solar array in the front yard on approximately 40 acres zoned RUR, Rural District in Section 6, Township 14, Range 22.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jay Leipzig, Planning Department. This item brought forward by Mr. Hamilton off of Edgerton Road. It's presented before the Southwest Consolidated Zoning Board on December the 19th, 2018. That body recommended unanimous approval of this item. Staff is also recommending approval. And as I said last time, this is a particular item where we have 40 acres for a solar array or solar installation. When we made some changes in our code a few years ago, we made some changes to allow various structures, accessory structures, but called out specifically solar installations, which in further discussion with the Planning Commission about making a change so that these kind of conditional use permit applications are not necessary, especially on an area where you have 40 acres. I think, frankly, it's too restrictive, and so staff is working with the Planning Commission to add that back in and make those corrections to the chapter.
Okay, well, that's good. I don't have a problem at all with this application, but I'm glad the Planning Commission is going to relook this type of issue. You know, a 40-year special use permit. I don't know how many of us will be around at the end of 40 years to see whether the permit was actually followed. So I think there has to be a different process than for this type of item, rather than what we currently have to do. So glad to hear that, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Leipzig and I had several conversations on this topic, and just for a moment, just to be redundant and for clarity, this has brought forward the idea that at different levels of government, we offer incentives and encouragement to use renewable energies, which I happen to be in favor of. I think that's a great idea. And then at the county, we happen to have a set of rules that our staff has to work by, because that's the policy that this body sets forward. They have to work within that context. So this brought forward the idea that maybe our policy was out of step with some bigger picture items that we as Americans have adopted. So from that perspective, I have encouraged and have heard repeatedly that we are in the process of rewriting our regulations, so we are more accommodative of this very type of renewable energy installation, not requiring this body to have to engage, but giving our staff the levity to make those decisions. I would also like to thank Mr. Hamblin for his patience as we have worked through this. So that's all I have. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, Ms. Fast?
In the code, I mean, what is the notification to the neighbors? Like, you know, I mean, the code doesn't, you know, it's allowing 40 years, but then are the neighbors notified?
Yes, Commissioner, when this item went before the zoning board, I believe it's within 500 feet of the adjacent parcel. The surrounding parcels they're all notified through that process.
So if all of them wrote back and disagreed, then how is that input taken into consideration?
That's all collected as part of the record, either through testimony at the meeting or any written comments we have are collected at that time. And actually, any time even after that, before it goes to the Board of County Commissioners, the department collects that information, and we'll include that in the packet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Leipzig, briefly, could you explain, how do you determine what a front yard is on a 40-acre parcel? Is that like where the driveway is, or
we look at the
direction it faces, or what?
Commissioner, we look at the direction the home faces, how it's addressed, and we look at the front of the house line going back, is how that is determined.
So what's the front of the house line? Where the front door is, or the main entrance, or?
we look actually the physical portion of the house where the front door is, basically. Either the front door, or we look at the side of the house where it ends, and then going forward. And this crosses over a little bit into the front. For some reason, Aaron, my visual aid is, oh, there we go, okay. Because you can see it there, if you look how it kind of crosses over into the front. That's how, when staff looks at that, we look at the center line of the road and go back.
Okay, so the front here is where the driveway enters the house?
The front, yes, off of Edgerton Road,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind, you know, our regulations, depending upon the acreage involved, have different regulations, and somewhere around 10 acres and 5 acres, and, you know, on a 40-acre tract, I think it ought to be eliminated, quite frankly. So, Mr. Brown.
And to answer Commissioner Ashcraft's question, in a rural setting, when you get above about 20 acres, there really is no definition of what is the front or the back. There's an example on Lake Shore, happens to be in Olathe now, had been in the county in the past. What most people would consider the back of the house faces Lake Shore because the front of the house faces east at the pond.
Yeah,
So,
faces the lake, yeah.
What you define as front or back when you get on a large parcel is
Yeah,
completely
that's what I was
subjective.
wondering.
So,
Okay.
yes.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Is the applicant
Chair?
present?
Oh, I just wanted to ask another question of
Yes.
Mr. Leipzig. I wanted to ask if, as those new regulations are developed, if it'd be possible for you to keep us apprised of those. I'd appreciate that.
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
One member of this commission will be assigned to the planning commission.
I think you just got to
As a-
volunteer.
Ding, 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 ding.
As the liaison, so,
You can report back to us and let us know. Perfect.
all right, okay. Is the applicant present, and does the applicant wish to make any comments? Okay, so noted. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the commission on this item? No one to be heard is back before the commission. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. In the spirit of getting it done, I move to adopt resolution number 002-19, approving a conditional use permit for a ground mount solar array in the front yard on a property located at 14619 Edgerton Road for the reasons and subject to the stipulations set forth within the resolution.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the resolution as recommended by both zoning board as well as staff. Any further comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye, motion carried. Next item.
Item number 4, application number NW-FP-3440 OL. Consider a request from David Whitecraft, WXW LLC, applicant, and Floyd Foster and Harold and Paul Leverance, landowners, for a final plat, Cedar Ridge Ranch, located at 24810 West 127th Street, for 17 residential lots on 60 acres, zoned RLD, Residential Low Density District.
Jay.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Jay Leipzig, Planning Department. This item is for a final plat at 24810 West 127th Street. It was presented before the Northwest Consolidated Zoning Board on December 17th, 2018. That body unanimously recommended approval of this item before the board. Staff is also recommending approval. The final plat is consistent with the preliminary plat, which was approved by this body on June the 15th of 2017.
Questions? Applicant-
Chair, I have
Excuse
a
me,
question.
Ms. Hanslick.
I wondered if you might explain, just for everyone's understanding, and mine included, that I noticed that it says that this final plat is subject to a fee in lieu of park dedication. And I assume that's because it's surrounded by park. But could you explain that just a little bit? How that
Sure,
works?
Commissioner, be happy to. There is a provision in our subdivision regulations of any time that there's land that is available like that or being developed, there is a parkland dedication fee for future parkland development, and that's essentially what that fee is. I think it's modeled after several that are kind of in the metro area, very, very similar. What makes this property unique is that it's surrounded by parkland on both sides as well, which makes it kind of an ideal situation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is the applicant present? Any comments they would like to make? Okay, so noted. Anyone else would like to comment on this item? If not, it's back for the commission. Mr. Brown, you're up again.
Thank you, Chairman. I move to approve a final plat for 17 residential lots to be known as Cedar Ridge Ranch, located at 24810 West 127th Street, for the reasons and subject to the stipulations recommended by the zoning board.
Second.
Motion's made and second to approve the application as noted and recommended. Any further comments? Mr. Icecraft.
I was just going to make the comment that that ought to be a very nice subdivision location. I mean, really, I think you've got a good, so good for you.
Any other comments? Being none, clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Hanslick.
Aye.
Commissioner Ashcraft.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Aye.
And Chairman Eilert.
Aye, motion carried. Are there any other items to consider on the action agenda?
No, sir.
All right, we'll turn to reports and communications. Ms. Postoke Ferguson, County Manager.
Thank you, Chairman. I have two items this morning. One is in your packet and one is an update that's happened since it was printed, and that's regarding storm debris. So first, I want to welcome Joe Connor, our new Assistant County Manager. This is day 4, and I think most of you have met him already because of the events that we've had this week. But to give you a little bit of background in case you're not familiar, he has worked for the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, most recently as Assistant County Administrator, and prior to that, most of his various positions, including accountant, business office, corrections, but most of his time there has been spent as the health director, but most recently Assistant County Administrator for the last 5 years. And he has a master's in business administration and has served on the board of directors of several organizations noted in the packet. And with that, I'd like to welcome Joe. So thank you. And my second item is storm debris drop-off. I'll ask Brian Pedig, Public Works Director, to come forward. We're aware of at least 9 cities that have either pickup or drop-off locations, and I think there's probably more talking about it. And we've gotten several questions, so we wanted to share that information here, and I'll let Brian give the update.
Good morning, Brian Pedig with Public Works. So there was a pretty significant event last week. We have a lot of downed trees, and there's potential for another event this weekend, which if the trees are weakened, might further exacerbate the situation. What we're looking at doing, and as you just heard, there's a lot of communities already doing that, is provide a tree limb drop-off for the debris. What we feel this does is it gives opportunity of folks to dispose of these tree debris properly, as opposed to kicking it out into the street or the ditch to where it then goes and plugs our culverts and gets under our bridges and creates more of an issue. We still end up picking it up, and it becomes much more difficult. So providing these opportunities, I think, is a great service to the community. We're looking at a couple locations, one to hit the south and east part of the county, and that will be Heritage Park. And then we're looking over in the western part of the county, and we're hoping to partner with Gardner. We're still working with them, and we might use the fairgrounds. If we can't, we'll look at the airport out there and do a drop-off. Our thought is to wait a week, allow folks to collect things, and especially in the unincorporated area, you have big properties, you might have quite a bit of damage. It can take you a while to collect all that. And then open up these sites for a couple weeks. That'd be Monday through Saturday. That'd give people an opportunity to collect things and get it turned in. We would then dispose of these, and depending on the volume we get, it's hard to say how much something like this might cost, but if it's not too big, we'll just take care of it. Or if it's a pretty significant amount, we'll have to contract that, and that could be $20,000 to $40,000 to have somebody come in and chip it up and dispose of it.
Do we still have that big grinder that was put in place, I think, back in the 80s when we had a big ice storm?
Godzilla.
Yes. Right.
We got rid of that a few years ago. We really feel that it wasn't worth the expense to buy a piece of equipment like that for just the odd occasion that happens once every few years, and we just contract out now.
You know, another issue that has been dealt with in the past, commercial haulers who might come in and be paid a fee, private, homeowner pay a fee. Will they be allowed to use this dump site, or will they have to dispose of it at their own cost.
The policing of this can get a little cumbersome. No, we would not allow commercial haulers into here. This would be for the residential folks. They have those abilities to take care of these things themselves and to use the county as that we wouldn't see appropriate. But policing of it can be difficult. You know, how do you know if we see somebody come in with an Asplin signature? We'd say no, it's not available, and we'd make that clear in our communications. This is for residential drop-off.
Okay, all right, very good. Mr. Ashcraft.
Follow on, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pedic, how many lane miles approximately are we responsible for plowing when the need arises?
We have about 440 centerline miles.
Okay, and how does that compare to the cities that have in their jurisdictions? Are we about average or lower?
So certainly cities like, I think Overland Park has 2,500 or so. I can't recall. You know, there's been a lot of changes through years. Olathe has significantly more. We're probably middle of the pack. The issue we have with snow plowing, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity, is in the rural area, it is much more difficult. We have an edge drop-off. We have narrow, unimproved county roads, and there are not street lights. There are not traffic signals at the end that you can aim at. You have that edge drop-off right next to the road, and it's a little slower going, a little more difficult, and we have a lot of issues with our trucks getting off, getting stuck. So it's a little more cumbersome, and to compare lane miles isn't probably a fair comparative.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Fast.
And I don't know if this is for you or staff. So was there the amount of loss this week's storm enough for Johnson County Emergency Management to get funding from the state? I mean, if we have this weekend, I mean, I remember it being like, almost $2 million in order to meet that state funding.
I think you're up, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
Dan Robeson, our Emergency Management
Okay.
Director.
Thank you, Dan. Didn't mean to call you up.
No
He's
problem.
on standby for this very purpose, to answer these questions.
It's an important question, one that we've been spending a lot of time looking at. And anytime we have a large event where there's been significant damages and costs, we reach out to all the jurisdictions within Johnson County and our different partners to see what the extent of those costs have been estimated. We did that in this case starting over the weekend. And we've only heard, we have a total of less than probably $500,000 worth for what happened over the weekend. And we need to meet a threshold of $2 million in Johnson County to hit that threshold. And then the state has to hit a statewide threshold of $4 million. So based on what we have now, we're significantly below that threshold.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Brian?
No, sir. I'll keep the board apprised of how this is going and give you a final report out.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing further, Chairman.
Okay, turning to commission comments. Anything that you would like to share with us at this time, Ms. Henslick?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to say thank you to the county manager and her staff and all of the county staff who have been so helpful in welcoming me this week. This is only my 4th day on the job, and they have been incredible. I could not be more proud to be part of the Johnson County government. We have just incredible staff, incredible services. We had a wonderful employee recognition event yesterday, and we have people who have been working for the county for over 40 years. It's very impressive, so I want to thank you for that. I also did want to make a note because a number of people have been asking me about resources for those people in our community who have been impacted by the federal shutdown, and I did put some information out on my commission Facebook page, but there are lists of those resources so that we can help people who are being impacted. Right now, it's really hard to tell how many people in the county are impacted, but we definitely know they are being impacted. So thank you, and thanks again for welcoming me and helping me get on board.
Very good. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a few items. Again, congratulations to Joe Connor. We're glad to have you on board. It's always good to have another dot in the building. Well, this Public Works, a shout out in my district. When it comes to emergency type services like snow plowing, no news is always very good news. And there was no news. There were no phone calls. There were no complaints. There were no emails. So, and I witnessed it myself driving around and looking that our Public Works Department did an excellent job of keeping in front of the curve on the snow. So, excellent job. Good job, Brian. Thank you. I was at the Kansas legislature opening and watched our representatives be sworn in. That was exciting. They were very, very, very active and busy. They all have much to accomplish, and they're hard at it. So for our folks who, Ms. Green, that keep track of our governmental affairs stuff, as you know, they're busy right now. So we need to keep track of what's flying through and being submitted for consideration. I attended Governor Kelly's inaugural ball on Monday night. It was hugely well attended. I've been to several of those. I've never seen that many people, I don't recall, at a governor ball. So it was well attended and it was well done, and I wish her the best and the best for Kansas. So it was nice to be with everybody there. The Johnson County Employee Recognition Reception yesterday was excellent. We have great people. As Commissioner Hanslick said, we've got somebody here, and I don't know who that person was, and it's irrelevant at this point, but we have somebody who's worked here 45 years. Now, I'm 50 years old. So, bragger. So I was sitting there, and it occurred to me that that person came to work here and has been serving in some capacity, somewhere, toiling away at Johnson County Services, providing for our citizens since I was 5. That's a long time ago. So whoever that person was, much credit and applause to them. That's a mighty long time in one place. And then finally, go Chiefs. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Allen.
Just real quickly, I'd echo the same comments on the employee recognition yesterday. I think it's a testament to our employees, the length that they do stay with us. It's one of the strengths of our county, frankly, the major strength, in my opinion. The majority of the people that work for this county do an excellent job, but very good program.
Thank you. Mr. Ashcraft.
Just to add to that, it seemed like it was the best attended since I've been here. I don't know if we keep counts, but it was a full house. So good for you, and I'm sure it's a credit to the stand-up that my twin comedian Joe Waters performed. So very, very good, Joe. Thank you. I do want to welcome the 2 new commissioners. Look forward to the next 4 years. And Mr. Chairman, I want to congratulate you on your 3rd victory as chair.
Thank you. Ms. Fast.
Yes, I just wanted to recognize what a wonderful swearing-in ceremony on Monday, and that just doesn't happen by itself. It's by the county manager staff, the public information office. Just really impressed how beautiful that ceremony was, and would like to thank, once we were elected, Commissioner Hanslick and I, how staff reached out. We've had transition meetings, transition trainings, and just really, everyone has just been so gracious, and I look forward to meeting with all of the county staff, the department heads, not all of the 4,000 staff. I don't think I can do that in the next year, but I'm looking forward to get to know more about the departments. Northeast Johnson County has really been hit hard with power outages. Many areas are still without power a week later. KCP&L, I talked to them this morning. They're working hard to employ more staff and to get everyone up and running. And with the weekend, my concern and thoughts are with you, and be in touch with KCP&L, and I can get in touch with them too on your behalf, because they're really working to try to get all the power up.
Okay, thank you. I want to make a note, the 18th, Friday evening, is Lenexa Chamber Annual Dinner, and there may be several of us there attending that event. That's at the Hyatt Place, Hyatt Hotel and Convention Center, beginning at 5:30 p.m. And then on the 19th, I'd mentioned earlier, Martin Luther King observance at the Johnson County Community College at 5 p.m. on Saturday. It's always a very excellent program. And then Monday, the 21st, at the Marriott, 5:30 p.m., the Legacy and Awards Dinner at the Overland Park Marriott Hotel. Someone asked earlier about the status or an update on government shutdown. Cindy, we talked about it this morning. I relayed to you information that I received on a conference call yesterday from the National Association of Counties. Could you give us a brief comment on, I'm not asking you to predict where we're at, but there are certain things that will happen over time.
Sorry, I should have stayed over here. I didn't think it'd come at this point. Just to let you know, yesterday I did send out in written form the information I shared with you last week, and I added a couple of bullet points of some additional information that we've heard from some different departments. Debbie Collins with Department of Human Services was notified that February is going to be their last housing assistant payment that they receive. So starting March 1st, they will not be receiving that funding, and the impact on Johnson County is we have 1,447 vouchers that we give people to help make their rent payment, and then that impacts over 3,000 people because those are families, so it's not just 1,400 folks. She was told that we cannot use other reserves to take care of that, to keep those funded, because it messes with the system. And then the other report we heard from was Kansas Department of Health and Environment. They sent an additional $1.4 million for food and $890,000 for administration of the SNAP program. It's called the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program, which is also known as WIC and food stamps. So that is going to get them through March 13th, but after that, there will not be funding. So we are getting closer to dates that people will be impacted if we do not receive additional funds. In addition to people that we have in the county that are not receiving paychecks, but there's no way to track that. I did hear a number last week on the news that there's 27,000 federal employees that work in the county, or in the metro area.
I think it's important to note there may be a publicity that by the end of January, these programs run out of funding, SNAP, WIC, Section 8, but the information we had yesterday is that in reality there will be additional funds available through February until the 1st of March. So, okay. Any other questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Green, thank you for the summary. Could you elaborate on what I thought I heard you say about the housing assistance and the use of reserves, that it messes with the system? What does that mean?
That if we use local funds to help fund them, to get them passed, we can't get refunded from the federal government, and the way that computes their income, it doubles up. And Maury may know better about this if he talked to Debbie in further detail than I did, but because the way the system works, it would mess with their future payments.
But so what happens to these people if there's no money?
They cannot make their rent payment, or their subsidized portion of their rent payment.
Will not receive payment.
So are they, as far as we know, they're out on the street, or will there be some great effort to work with landlords to give them some grace period?
My understanding is unless they have personal resources to compensate from the lack of that HUD payment, that will not be paid. There's no other source for that other than their personal resources.
So it basically will be up to the landlord.
Correct, to work with them, I assume, yeah.
Now, you know, I would say this, hopefully the situation will be resolved by the end of January, if not, at least by the end of February. And if that turns out to be the case, either instance, then these concerns will go away. So.
And that's a fair point, Mr. Chairman, but we may want to explore this further if this continues.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
And we will continue to be in touch with our federal officials too, notifying them of this information.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. That concludes our regular agenda. So we are adjourned. We'll take a short break and come back for agenda review for next week's meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ron was 65, so Ron would have been a big dog. That's a name I know. They won Sunflower. Well, that's a name I've heard. I've heard that name. Yeah, he was a good guy. Good quarterback. Chairman. We're running.
At this time, we'll call to order the Board of County Commissioners meeting for the purpose of agenda review for next week's business session. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Fast.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Klicka is absent. Commissioner Hanslick. Here. Commissioner Ashcraft.
Here.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
And Chairman Eilert.
Here. We do have a quorum present. Would the clerk please read the proposed consent agenda items?
Item number 1, resolution number 001-19. Consider approving an agreement submitted by the City of Olathe, Kansas, and Fire District Number 2 of Johnson County, Kansas, and ordering the detachment of land from the boundaries of the fire district and the transfer of such land to the city for fire protection services. Item number 2, resolution number 003-19. Consider setting a public hearing for February 14th, 2019, to consider a petition to create a benefit district to improve a public street commonly known as Red Bird Street in the Windmill subdivision. And item number 3, request for proposal RFP number 2018-057. Consider authorizing a contract to Gilmore and Bell, PC, for bond counsel services at a cost not to exceed $200,000 for 1 year with the option to renew for 4 additional one-year periods.
Mr. Lind, do you want to make any comments about item number 1?
Actually, no, unless you would like for me to give an explanation, or if the new commissioners
Brief one would be fine.
All right. Rick Lind with the Johnson County Legal Department. The City of Olathe adopted 3 ordinances that annex certain land into the city. This detachment happens to concern only that land located within the boundaries of Fire District Number 2 of Johnson County, Kansas. The city and the Fire District Number 2 entered into an agreement whereby the parties outlined the detachment of the land from the fire district and its transfer into the city. Because the board wears 2 hats in this process, one is the governing body of Fire District Number 2, and also your statutory obligations to consider this agreement. We had the agreement negotiated by the fire chief and his attorney. Pursuant to state law, the city and the fire district must obtain the county's approval of the agreement prior to the detachment. The agreement provides for the fire district to continue to provide fire services through the end of this year and the city to take over those services in 2020. Therefore, the city will not receive any taxes until 2020. I know Commissioner Ashcraft one time wants to make sure there's not double taxation. That's the guarantee there, Commissioner, that that doesn't happen. The agreement also does not include any compensation to the fire district as a result of the detachment, as the fire district has determined that the detachment will not materially jeopardize or affect the remaining tax base of the fire district. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation. And a question to Mr. Jarrett. We sit separately as the fire board. Is this appropriate to have this item on the consent agenda?
Yes, this is the Board of County Commissioners approving the agreement that has already been approved by the fire district.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Lind, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. You are personally guaranteeing that there will not be a repeat of the duplicate tax issue that we had in North Olathe last year?
No, that's an easy question. I'm not personally guaranteeing that at all, but there have been safety precautions taken to ensure that that doesn't happen. What we got into in the past is there would be a tax from the city, and then there would also not be this detachment, so the fire district and the city are doing both. In their agreement, we look for the provision that says, hey, wait a minute, We want to make sure until the detachment takes place, there isn't double taxation. That's in there, but some bureaucratic mistake could be made at any of those entities, but we've done the best we can to ensure it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, that was an administrative oversight, I believe. I know it was not intentional. I just hope that Mr. Bartolak and his crew are sensitive to that.
The attorneys are very sensitive to that on both sides. We have 3 attorneys involved with the city, the fire district, and me, and so we're all there trying to make sure.
How could anything go wrong?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The words right out of my mouth. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lynn. All right, this will remain on consent. Are there any questions on the other 2 proposed consent items? Mr. Ashcraft?
Mr. Chairman, on number 3, just was wondering, there were only 2 firms that expressed an interest in this contract. One is the existing, and that's it used to be a fairly competitive field, and I was just surprised that there were only 2 firms that were considered.
Good morning, Nate Bloom with the Budget Office. Yes, we did only receive 2 firms' responses. It was sent out to over 300 firms and 12 reviewed the RFP. We also directly sent it to several local law firms as well. But yes, only 2 were received.
There was no response from those firms?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Fast?
How many, I mean, this is a very specialized area. I mean, how many actually even specialize?
Locally?
Yeah.
Let's see here. There's 7 that we specifically sent it to, 7 local firms that we specifically sent it to that would specialize in this area.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Brown?
What service do they provide for the $200,000 fee?
So they draft all of our bond resolutions, sale resolutions, approval of the sale. They work with SEC filings, EMA filings for the MSRB. They help put together our official statement for each bond issue.
Chairman?
Quite a few services.
I think generally they also keep us from incurring liabilities.
Correct.
That if there are oversight of items that are not done properly in that bonding process, then hopefully their work is at a level, and the recommended firm has been that way, but complicated process that if mistakes are made, then the county has liability to bondholders.
Chairman, I would like to add that it's up to $200,000, so it depends on the number of bond issuances and the magnitude as well.
Correct. Last year with the courthouse and Tomahawk, we just about reached that 200,000 mark. Typically, it's between 50,000 to 100,000.
Mr. Ashcraft.
I follow on, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bloom, remind me, how long have we used Gilmore and Bell? It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, Gilmore and Bell first got the contract starting. The RFP was in 2013. I believe they started in 2014.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Brown.
One more question, thank you. So then there's a $200,000 lid that we're pre-approving to be not to exceed. And then there's a billable rate, because this is a law firm. So their billable rate and predetermined hours, and how does that work?
So for the RFP purposes, we gave them a typical bond issue that we would do. We gave it to all both respondents. They basically incorporated all their costs in their proposal. So that would include
not billable hours, is what you're saying.
It's typically based on the amount of bonds issued. There are a few things such as travel, small, coming to the commission meetings.
But there's some standardization in this.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, well, the consent agenda will stay as presented. Moving to the action agenda, next item.
Item number 4, consider entering into a 3-year online-only enterprise agreement with Microsoft Corporation for Microsoft subscription licenses for county employees through SHI International Corporation. This agreement will secure and lock in subscription pricing for a 3-year duration in an amount not to exceed $850,000 per year under the State of Kansas contract number 42145.
Brian.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Chairman. I'm Brian Thomas, Department of Technology and Innovation, Interim Director and Chief Information Officer, here to discuss this agreement. During our research to move off our legacy e-discovery technology 2 years ago, we determined moving our email to the cloud allowed for more flexibility, integration, and improved management. More importantly, what I'd like to point out is we reduce much of the compliance management, avoid costly software audits, and steep penalties from Microsoft. With this contract, we'll have a guaranteed fixed cost during this new agreement period. Bundling the Office products together provides better pricing, obviously, and we'd keep current on our Microsoft licensing for compatibility, ongoing security enhancements, and improved functionality. What's important to note here is Microsoft made some significant announcements last year around their software. Essentially, it's going to limit our traditional local perpetual licensing products to integrate with the cloud, which would be cloud email, which we are currently utilizing today. And lastly, many of our other county local governments are already moved to this subscription pricing. They are using email in the cloud and Office 365. This contract was competitively bid under the Kansas State contract and is pursuant to the county cooperative purchasing policy, has been reviewed by legal, purchasing, and budget, and I will stand for questions.
Questions? Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Thomas, maybe before next week we could visit a little bit. I'm particularly interested in your assertion about the cost savings and how that works and how we're tracking that and what that means exactly.
Absolutely. I'll get a meeting set up before next Wednesday, or Thursday, rather.
Please include me in that.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Well, okay, we'll keep this one on action. Next item.
Please note, the board is sitting as the governing board of Fire District Number 2 for item number 5 and number 6. Number 5, resolution number 2019-1. Consider approving Fire District Number 2 waiving the requirements of KSA 75-1120A pertaining to preparing financial statements and reports in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP, for the year ending December 31st, 2018.
Ms. Jones.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Becky Jones from the Office of Treasury and Financial Management. Chief Francis was unable to attend today, so I'm presenting this item on his behalf. He will be here next week. Before you this morning is a request to approve Fire District Number 2 Resolution 2019-1, waiving the requirements of Statute KSA 75-1120AA pertaining to preparing the financial district's financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP. Historically, the Fire District Board has approved this resolution every year in March. By approving this resolution, the Fire District's 2018 financial statements will be prepared on the basis of cash receipts and disbursements as adjusted to show compliance with the cash basis of accounting and budget laws of the state of Kansas. This will be the last year the Fire District Board will need to approve this resolution. Effective January 1st of 2019, the Fire District's financials are in the county's Oracle financial system and are prepared in accordance with GAAP. John Martin, the Fire District CPA, is here to answer any specific questions related to the 2018 financials. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Mr. Martin, any comments you'd like to make? This is I guess I could use the word a technical issue at this point.
Yes, it is a technical issue that the state statute requires the governing body to waive that requirement and present the financial statements on the statutory basis for the cash basis laws with Kansas. And this is how the Fire District and many other small municipalities in the state have prepared their financial statements.
Right. Okay, thank you. Questions?
Consent.
Well, this is a fire board issue, so it won't go to consent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item.
Some attorney came up with that.
Item number 6, consider authorizing a contract with Conrad Fire Equipment for 1 2019 Kenworth Pierce tanker truck for use by Johnson County Fire District Number 2 at a cost not to exceed $282,534.19 to be paid from the Fire District Reserve Funds per Houston Galveston Area Council, HGAC, Contract FS 12-17.
Chief.
Good morning. Colby Stanchfield, Chief of Administration, Fire District 2, and Andy Ravnikar, our Assistant Chief, Fire District 2. As Becky said, we're also here standing in for Chief Francis. He's out of town. So a little bit about this fire truck that we're wanting to replace. It's a tanker fire truck, also referred to as a tender in the county. The truck has, it's primarily used to haul water on structure fires to areas within our district that are limited on fire hydrants or don't have any fire hydrants at all. The truck also does have pumping capabilities. It has a 1250 GPM pump on it. The trucks are required for our ISO rating, and we maintain a minimum of 2 of these trucks, and 2 are dispatched on a structure fire in our district. The replacement plan for these trucks is 18 to 20 years. It is on our CIP. We do have reserve funds budgeted for this item. Be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Is this a larger capacity or than what you currently have?
It is, yes. So currently the two tenders or tankers that we have now are 1,500 gallon trucks. This one's going to be a 2,000 gallon, have a 2,000 gallon water tank, so we'll be able to haul 500 more gallons of water with this particular apparatus.
Other questions, Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Chairman. Was this a planned for purchase?
It was, yes.
And what's the plan with the 2 trucks now that are currently in service? Will they continue in service? Will they be liquidated?
They will continue in service. This is an 11 to 12 month build. We'll be trading in 1 truck on this. It will remain in service until we get the new truck, and then the other truck will remain in service also, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Allen.
When we had our meeting at the fire station several months ago, I remember this was brought up. The truck that you're replacing, that 18 to 20 year, for some reason, I think the one you're replacing is in that age group.
It will be. It's a 2001, and we'll take delivery of the other one at the first of next year in 2020, so it'll be 19 years old.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Ashcraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to direct this question to Mr. Thompson. You may not be the right person, more it may be Mr. Waters, but I was wondering, are the fleet capacities of Fire District 2 part of the consideration of the county's support of the district?
No, to my knowledge, Commissioner, we have not got to that level of conversation. That's something that we can look at in the future.
I know it is specialized equipment,
right,
and you have certain mechanics that you have to go to, but they do have a fleet, and that was just an aside, so.
No, good question. I think we need to take a look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other items? Any other questions? All right, well, again, this will remain on action for consideration, as we said, as the fire board. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other items?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll just have one note. Next week, we will have a study session to review the community survey, which will be going out. So with that, we are adjourned. Stay warm this weekend, and wish the chiefs best success. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.